Oh my god, shit.
Good.
Predator is as iconic as 80s action films go, and under the deft hands of John McTiernan, it perfectly balances science fiction, humor, and action incredibly well, but at its heart, the movie is pure horror. The first film was followed by a quickly made but terrific 90s sequel starring Lethal Weapon's Danny Glover and the sadly missed Bill Paxton that leaned more towards science fiction and action. Finally, Robert Rodriguez was given a shot at reviving the fading franchise, producing the 2010 Nimrod Antel directed Predators. The movie expands on the ideas we've had in previous films and takes it into a new direction, with the aliens abducting their prey and dropping them off on a hunting planet used by the Yautja. I was then pretty excited to hear that Shane Black, who starred as Hawkins in the original film, is going to be helming the next entry into the franchise. Surely someone who starred in and was the unofficial script editor of the film that launched everything would be a perfect fit.
Dr. Brackett, would you like to meet a predator? Come on.
Turns out, no. This is why I was ultimately so disappointed with the end result, which traded the dramatic tension and horror synonymous with the Predator franchise for excessive humor, with every single person in this film making a joke, even if it doesn't suit their character.
What is this?
Unicorn.
Unicorn.
It's a unicorn. Two morons really making bets on whether a drug cartel has executed these hostages.
Absolutely. I believe that was implied, yeah.
Just checking. I'm in for 20.
From the Bible? That's the most ridiculous thing I've ever heard. It's a space alien.
This gets so out of hand that even the Predators have a sense of humor comparable to Shane Black and like to make jokes now.
Everything okay back there?
Really funny. What do you mean I'm funny?
As we're about to discuss, the production also didn't exactly go as planned, with the studio demanding major rewrites and reshoots, which changed the entire third act. Predator wasn't only a box office disappointment and a major casting fail, but a cinematic aberration and textbook example of how not to do horror, why some things are better left untouched, and how to ruin a franchise. Hey guys, what's happening? Niyat here with Film Comics Explained. And as voted for by you guys in last week's poll, today we're going to be exploring Shane Black's 2018 The Predator, as well as the version of the film that was ultimately cut by the studio. One of the fundamental differences between John McTiernan's original Predator film and Shane Black's The Predator is the approach each director takes. With McTiernan's skillful execution, Predator rises above its action movie sci-fi roots, reversing our expectations by placing a handful of the most dangerous men in the world into a situation beyond their control. Predator goes all in on the jungle, all in on the sci-fi, and all in on the sweaty palmed macho action. Yes, there's some comedy in the dialogue between the characters and one-liners that they spew, but the jokes are always in character, and they never get in the way of the film's true genre, horror. The larger-than-life soldiers appear to be on top of everything for the first 30 minutes of the film, with a handful of clues scattered throughout the jungle as to the real danger they were actually in. And by the time the Predator begins to hunt them down, the tone of the film changes from an action comedy to a horrifying thriller. The Predator, on the other hand, completely misunderstands how to use action, horror, and especially humor, with its insertion often undercutting all the dramatic tension that's been built.
Yeah, I just want the boy. Nobody's gotta die.
Dad?
From here forward.
When Shane Black is in his element, he's a master of dialogue and building character. The best part of his two films, Kiss Kiss Bang Bang and The Nice Guys, is the superbly crafted dialogue, noir sensibilities, and witty characterizations. But the Predator franchise isn't noir, It's not a buddy cop movie either, although a Predator buddy movie would be pretty cool. I mean, the best part of Alien v Predator was seeing Alexa Woods and a Predator team up to take on a xenomorph queen, so I guess I'm game. Point is, the series is a sci-fi horror, but instead of getting high-strung set pieces brimming with machismo, terror, and gore, we got Keystone Cops levels of silliness. It's like watching the helicopter scene from the original movie, but with a 2-hour punchline.
Is it just your imagination? Or is this haunted room actually stretching?
Every fucking time?
While its attempts at expanding the Predator lore are commendable, the overuse of comedy and issues with the fast pacing, tone, and script, like the Ultimate Predator wanting to use the DNA of a kid with autism to enhance the genetics of its species because science, makes it hard to invest in what's going on. The latest entry into the series opens in outer space, showcasing a conflict between two Predator ships. After sustaining damage, the fleeing ship goes through a portal that leads it crashing towards Earth, where we find our protagonist, Ranger Quinn McKenna, played by Boyd Holbrook, engaging in a rescue operation when the damaged ship crashes into his location. McKenna comes across some of the Predator's equipment and takes it, before he and his squadmate Dupree are taunted by the alien, which strings up a third member of their team. The Predator then characteristically attacks the pair and kills Dupree, but Quinn is able to use its own gear to incapacitate it, just as a secret government division named Project Stargazer arrives on scene, led by Sterling K. Brown's Will Traeger, who likes chewing gum and wearing shades.
Gentlemen, remember, they're large, they're fast, and fucking you up's their idea of tourism.
As Project Stargazer takes the Predator to a research base, McKenna swallows the Predator's cloaking device and sends some of the alien gear he acquired to a PO box that eventually gets routed to his family home, moments before he's apprehended. Which begs the question, if he has an invisibility device, why does he allow himself to get captured? The only answer that Black gives us is that it needs to happen so that the plot can progress. We then meet Quinn's autistic son Rory, who receives the package and somehow manages to decipher the alien language, because this film wants us to believe that autism is a superpower. More on this later. But as he turns the gear on, the Ultimate Predator that was chasing the fugitive gets a lock on the gear's location and sets off to Earth, kicking the story into motion. The unconscious Predator is then transported to a secret lab where an evolutionary biologist, Olivia Munns Brackett, who was literally swept off the streets, is asked to study it, because science and government.
So how'd they rope you into this?
I wrote a letter to the president when I was 6. Told him how much I loved animals and that if NASA ever found a space animal, they should call me.
The success of films like Predator and Alien is that they don't show you the full creature until the end, forcing the audience to piece together an image of what they thought it might look like based on each of their encounters, until the horrifying revelation in the final act.
You're one ugly motherfucker.
The newest addition to the franchise shoots itself in the foot by revealing the Ultimate Predator in the trailers, rather than making it a surprise reveal. Worse than this is the framing and lighting used in the shots with the Predators. Instead of using tight angles, darkness, and scenery to set an ominous mood, we have the Predator strapped to a gurney in a huge, bright white room filled with scientists. Of course, the Predator, who we discover had human DNA spliced into it, escapes, just as Quinn and a group of one-dimensional military convicts are ferried to the location. Holbrook is solid as McKenna and brings the same sort of grit to the role that he brought to Logan antagonist Pierce, and Trevante Rhodes is likable as McKenna's troubled but dependable right-hand man. Unfortunately, other cast members don't fare quite so well. Theon Greyjoy might as well not be in the film, and Keegan-Michael Key and Olivia Munn are criminally miscast as a tough former soldier and apparent genius scientist, respectively.
You shut the fuck up.
Then there's Thomas Jane's Tourette-suffering Baxley, a character almost as unfunny as he is offensive.
Okay. Fuck off, pussy.
A problem worsened by the fact that his main purpose in the film is comedy relief. These dirty half dozen take over the bus they're on, and taking Brackett along for the ride, head over to McKenna's home, prompted by the realization that Quinn had put his wife and son Rory in danger. But the issue is that up until this point, none of the characters seem to be terrified of either Predator. If the protagonists aren't scared of the titular creatures, how could we be expected to suspend our disbelief and feel fear? Honestly, the only moment that had any sort of sustained tension or dread was the earlier sequence with Brackett attempting to leave the lab while the Predator went on a killing spree in the room beside her. This should have been the tone of the film and was what I was expecting based on the trailer, but it ended up being a single moment of terror that got lost in the film's attempt to blend Suicide Squad with Predator. The scene was also then undercut by the following actions of Brackett, who, with no military experience or training, is then seen chasing down the Predator on foot. The Predator is literally killing every soldier that gets in the way, and we have a biologist keeping up with its pace and doing some ridiculous stunts in an attempt to shoot the most experienced killer in the galaxy with a single-shot tranquilizer gun. This is National Lampoon levels of absurdity that Street's behind. Apart from Rory, Quinn and Trevante Rhodes as Nebraska, who all effectively have their characters somewhat fleshed out, it was really difficult to connect with any of the other characters because they all feel like parodies of human beings. The loonies are all expendable, as are all of the other characters in the film, and as such, little thought is put into who they are and what they have to say. They're just there to tell jokes. The worst part is that this humour comes in at the most inappropriate of times, with an eye-rolling joke, pun or comedic moment that totally ruins the dramatic tension that's established.
It's property of Project Stargazer, that's what the fuck it is.
With Project Stargazer, as well as the fugitive and ultimate predators after Rory, the scoundrels arrive just in time to save McKenna's son, who's wearing the Predator mask as a Halloween costume. What's messed up is that, right before they find him, the helmet is triggered by someone throwing a can at Rory and responds by sending a plasma round at the offender's direction, killing him in a gruesome display in front of trick-or-treating children, before Rory just walks away as if nothing happened, because character development. The fugitive locates McKenna and Rory, but is then promptly taken out by the upgrade. Our team are then captured by Traeger, who explains his theory that not only did the Predators learn new tactics and strategies from the game that they hunted, but that they were trying to improve their race with superior human DNA before we all die out due to climate change, because science. The Predators are supposed to be perfect hunters, and we're all small, puny, insignificant beings with regards to strength and intellect when compared to the Predators. So why would they want to mix their DNA with ours?
You shut the fuck up.
Traeger then kidnaps Rory and uses him to open the crashed alien ship, forcing Quinn and the loonies to rescue him, just as the ultimate predator crashes the party and gives everyone a head start before it started hunting them, in a roped-in attempt to replicate the hunt from the original film. The loonies, now teaming up with Traeger, who literally shoots himself in the head like an idiot, start fleeing through the forest where they're whittled down to McKenna, Brackett, Nebraska, and Rory, right before the ultimate predator decides to also get into the kidnapping game, because consistency. Turns out, Rory's autism is an advancement in human evolution, and the ultimate predator wants to use his DNA for hybridization. With Nebraska taking his life to bring the ship down, the remaining group confront the pissed off ultimate predator. Instead of ending McKenna, the ultimate, which killed the fugitive in one blow, decides to throw him around the place, giving our remaining trio time to bring it down with its own equipment. In the original film, the last 30 minutes is dedicated to both Dutch and the Predator readying themselves for the battle of all ages. The sequence is well paced, lit and choreographed, showcasing how Dutch uses his wit, ingenuity and grit to defeat a nigh unstoppable hunter that wiped out his entire team. But here we have a bulletproof upgrade that can do this. Taken out by a series of unfortunate events because resolution. The film then concludes with McKenna and Rory working for the same government body that was straight up trying to kill them and other citizens with impunity, because narrative progression. We also find out that the fugitive had left us a gift in the form of a predator-killing suit to level the playing field between humans and predators. But considering so much of the original story, which we're about to discuss in the next chapter, revolving around humans and a pair of predators working together to defeat a clan of upgrade predators, had been cut out in the reshoots mandated by Fox, this moment makes absolutely no sense in the context of the story we just watched. Given its striking similarities to the Iron Man suit, and the fact that Shane himself directed Iron Man 3, I can't help but feel that they were trying to take a monster horror series we love and universal it by turning it into a superhero franchise. By the film's conclusion, none of the characters have grown or gone through a meaningful arc, and the predators, once feared and respected mortal hunters, are now honorless, bulletproof brutes. The only thing Shane Black's Predator succeeds in doing is to highlight how much better the original film was. Due to the presence of an actual sexual predator in a few scenes, and Fox generally not being happy with the direction that Black and co-writer Fred Dekker had taken the film in, rewrites and reshoots were mandated, fundamentally changing the backbone of the narrative and the motivations and goals of our protagonists and antagonists. During production of The Predator, you might have remembered seeing set photos that featured predators and armored cars along with our human heroes. Fred Dekker shed some light on the film's original intention and how these good guy predators fit into the story. I think we were halfway through the shoot. We devised a sequence which was essentially our heroes commandeering a military convoy. At that point in the film, we established a pair of predator emissaries, basically good guy predators. What was interesting to Shane and I was to ask a question that nobody had tackled before, which is, what do the predators do except for hunt? They've invented interstellar spacecrafts, so they're clearly not stupid, and they've obviously got a civilization and culture which is worth exploring. Our idea was that their planet is dying, so they decided to take what previously was explored, to dope up creatures with the DNA of other types of predators from alien worlds, and create new targets for the hunt. But now they realized, well hey, maybe we need to genetically upgrade ourselves to survive, creating a fracture between traditional Yautja and the new wave of honorless upgrade predators. Since Earth is warming up and predators love the heat, the idea was that the clan of upgrade predators wanted to move in, leading to our heroes and the two good predators teaming up. The story revealed that the upgrades had been developing gestating hybrids by splicing predator DNA with the DNA of creatures from all over the galaxy, which they planned on releasing on Earth to eradicate mankind. What was to follow was an epic battle between the two groups, but as Dekker described, the studio felt as though they were straying too far from what audiences were expecting the predator to be, so they turned it into more of a hunt and set the sequence at night. Dekker continues, I'm actually quite pleased with the first half of the movie, but it kind of goes off the rails, and Hollywood does this all the time. By trying to appeal to everyone, they end up appealing to no one. What's frustrating is that this plotline is so much more interesting than what we ended up getting. Considering the significant changes made to the film in post-production, it's no wonder the pacing, turning characters are all over the place in The Predator. Fox essentially created another fan-for-sick situation by hiring a director that probably wasn't the right fit, and then undermining their choices and punishing bold creative decisions by straight up overhauling their vision, story, and characters. The end result isn't one cohesive film, it's a fragmented patch-up of scenes from two completely different movies. The first Predator succeeds because the script was solid, the performances were on point, and the film understood the balance necessary between action, comedy, sci-fi, and horror. The Predator has all of these things, just not in the right quantities or order. The action sequences are great, and there's a good level of gore, but every scene, and I mean every single one, is degraded and spoiled by a lack of focus and a penchant for humor, through a fundamental misunderstanding of the source material and a range of poor storytelling choices. The Predator ended up being a pale, distorted shadow of the series we love. By focusing on humor above horror, The Predator fails to grasp the quintessential truth of the first film, that predators are terrifying. And as a result, I think it's a prime example of how to ruin a franchise.